This animation is made for educational purposes only. Hello, dear classmates and teacher. Today, I'll be talking about the journey of sperm. Well, let's start, shall we? Let's start from the very beginning, actually, in the testes, where 1,000 sperm are made every second, which is quite a lot. Now, sperm don't actually find storage in the testes. Rather, they find it in the epididymis, which is a tube sperm also used to move from the scroll sac to the urethra. Although possibly millions of sperm are made every day, it still takes around 74 days for them to mature. And meanwhile, their storage, they don't do much besides wait and mature. That is until there is sexual intercourse, where sperm finally begin to move out of the epididymis and towards the urethra and down along the penis, until ejaculation, where around 80 to 300 million sperm are ejaculated into the vagina. But before we continue, how do sperm work? Well, sperm have three main parts: the head, which protects the genetic material. B, no. So then the second one would be the mid part, or which holds the mitochondria, which helps power the cell, and the third one would be the flagellum, which basically it's just a tail that it uses to move. Now let us start this dangerous and epic quest with our heroes, and already millions of them died from the acid environment and being expelled from the vagina. Yikes! But not to worry, most of them survive thanks to fluid around them protecting them, and they can move on to the next stage of the journey. As sperm continue, they encounter the cervix, which is a passage towards the uterus. The cervix is usually closed, but during a few days it's open when the female ovulates. As our heroes swim through the mucus like inside of the cervix, millions more also die trying to go through the mucus. Some even get trapped there but can't act as backup in case the original group does not make it. After that, our heroes go through the uterus, which has muscular contractions to help them on the journey. But there's also the immune system that might mistake them for the sperm for harmful invaders, and kill more of them. Hey man, I'm not a one of those stinky bacterias. I am not a foreign invader. Well, I am somewhere I should not be. After that, they enter into one of the final legs of the journey, into the fallopian tube, where half of them go into an empty fallopian tube, and the other go on the one with the unfertilized ova or egg. Apparently sperm cells are not very good at directions. At this point, only a few thousand of our original 80 to 300 million sperm remain, but they can't catch a break yet, as the cilia pushing the egg towards the uterus creates an opposite motion to the sperm that they have to overcome to reach the egg. And once again, many of them die from getting trapped in the cilia. Poor guys. But chemicals in the fallopian tube change the membranes in their heads of the sperm, which makes them hyperactive, helping them overcome this final challenge. And at long last, a few dozen of our heroes finally find the unfertilized egg. The egg is surrounded by a layer of cells called the corona radiata, which serves as a protection and to feed vital nutrients to the cell. The few dozen sperm that remain must breathe through it to reach the zona pellucida, the outer layer of the egg. When the sperm reaches it, they have to attach to specialized sperm receptors that activate the digestive enzymes that allows them to move through the layer. Whoever reaches the liquid space between the zona pellucida and the egg membrane first fertilizes the egg, and eventually, with odds of 1 to 300 million, one of our heroes finally fertilizes the egg. That lucky cell fuses with the membrane of the membrane with the their membrane with the eggshell's membrane, and is pulled inside of the egg into the nucleus. The eggshell then releases chemicals to drive away other sperm cells from the egg and hardens the zona pellucida, trapping any cells inside it and leaving the rest of them unable to enter it. Meanwhile, inside the egg, the genetic material of the male is released, and a membrane creates the male pronucleus as it forms around it. Then the genetic material reforms into 23 chromosomes. At the same time, the female genetic material also reforms into a pronucleus and 23 chromosomes. As soon, en- uh, and soon enough, the microtubes begin to pull them together, and eventually they join together, creating the unique genetic code for the baby, determining a lot of things about it. And with that, the new zygote cell moves to the uterus. And as the zygote travels down the fallopian tubes to the uterus, it will start dividing into multiple cells. When the zygote enters the uterus and implants itself into the lining of the uterus, the cells that divided form a ball that's called the blastocyst, which begins developing the baby. And for weeks after this, the woman stopped having the menstruation cycle and stopped having periods. After 16 days, the new plate of the baby begins to develop, which is basically the base of the brain. Eventually, later on in development, the plate becomes the neural tube, which will form into the brain and spine. After 3 to 5 weeks, the heart of the baby begins to develop and beat, and the face and limbs also begin to develop. And after some more time, it begins to develop other major organs and systems. The baby at this point has a tail, or what looks like a tail, but will eventually disappear and form the tailbone. At around 3 months, the baby mostly looks human, recognizable as the face, skin, and limbs have formed a lot. At this point, the baby will also begin to move a bit, but reproductive organs are not yet developed, so gender is yet to be determined. The baby is also fed nutrients and oxygen through the umbilical cord, which is a cord that forms in the baby's abdomen. Fun fact: that is where you get the belly button from. After 4 to 6 months, the basic five senses of the baby begin to develop. These are sight, taste, hearing, touch, and smell. The baby will also do more aggressive moves like kicking the walls of the womb, and by this point, ultrasound should be able to reveal the baby's gender as the reproductive organs have developed mostly. And in the final 3 months, the baby begins to continue to grow in size as it matures. The lungs also finalize their maturing, which means that at this point the survival of the baby is almost guaranteed as it's born. Then after around 9 months, the mother begins to enter labor as the latent phase begins, where the cervix stretches, sending signals to the mother's brain to begin to make virgo contractions, which are contractions that begin to contract the uterus, and it makes the cervix also stretch even more. But these contractions can be painful and regular. Once the cervix opens to around 3 to 4 centimeters of diameter, the active phase begins and the cervix opens even more up to around 10 centimeters. The uterus is also contracting, which slowly pushes the baby onto its born, and eventually the placenta along with the umbilical cord detached from the uterus. The umbilical cord is then cut from the baby and then made into your belly button. And like that, after a few other medical stuff that I don't have the time to add here because it's 11 a.m. and I'm talking about this type of stuff, the baby's finally born. So remember, kids, you're the luckiest out there. You won a deadly race of around 1 to 300 million chance. You are that little sperm that decided to give it that one extra mile, and then you survived 9 whole months in your mother's womb until you were pushed out there and became a very cute, if you ask your parents, child. And now, and whatever your age is, you're sitting here watching me present a video all about this. I am in emotional pain.